Tactical Crouch, take number 1. Hey everybody, welcome to Tactical Crouch, episode number 5. I am John Horstman, also known as KickedTripod, with Volamel and Yiska, here to bring you all the Overwatch leaks. Right?
No leaks.
Right,
Only
Joe?
seaweed.
Only seaweed?
Only seaweed.
Yeah, you like seaweed.
I like seaweed.
That's his thing
do
now.
like
He
seaweed.
loves seaweed. Anyways, we need a tagline for the show, like sometime. But before we do, we've got like 2 housekeeping, 2 housekeeping things to talk about. First, no show next week, so we're going extra long this week. So strap in. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be a bumpy one. It's going to be a good one. Number 2, you can download this show everywhere. Search for Tactical Crouch on all your RSS feeds, podcast apps, or whatever. If it doesn't show up for whatever reason, it's on the Overwatch League daily feed. So, yeah. You can find everything there. And, of course, we record live on Twitch Mondays, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Twitch.tv/KickedTripod. And you can find this on YouTube at youtube.com/KickedTripod. All right, guys. Lots going on today. Joe. Lots of movement. I can't barely stay up to date.
Yeah, it's lots of people now starting to tease from the existing teams. I think Toronto's event that they're going to be unveiling some signings, potentially team colors, whatnot. I actually don't know if it's going to be the signings. So we'll see. It's a lot of movement. Up until this point, it's been a lot of speculation and leaking here and there, and all this person's talking to this team, and now they're not. Oh, now they're over here. But now I think we're starting to reach the end of roster mania, where people are starting to settle in, and you're starting to see. Yeah.
I just hope it's not another Dallas Fuel thing. We're like, hey, we've got big news coming up, and then they cut half the roster. They're like, big news, it's going to be great. And they're all without a team.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Big news.
Is there anybody? I don't think anybody's left to be cut.
No.
I think everybody's bringing people on at this point.
If anything, training.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would want to see more of that. That's one thing that I wish we would see more of, is trading. Because we don't we have like a couple. I could count on maybe one hand how many trades we've had.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll kind of find an equilibrium eventually once there's enough teams.
Yeah.
Where it's like you probably pay a lot more in like a trade than you probably do for just signing somebody similar.
Yeah. Especially some of like the new talent for like next season.
Yeah.
It's like how many 18-year-olds that are going to be like coming of age at season 3 are going to be wanted. There's like quite a few of them.
Some of it is also just like blatantly throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars away. Like for instance, in Addo's case, just releasing him, not triggering the 1+1, like you could easily have gotten 200K.
Yeah, that's now that's kind of entered into the public domain. It doesn't make much sense why they axed the entire roster, where you could have probably made some moves. Granted, how were they supposed to know that there was going to be like 3 new Chinese teams? Maybe you could have peddled them off there, or at least give them a +1. But yeah, Otto specifically, it's like that didn't make much sense.
I mean, are you really... I don't know what he's being paid, obviously, last season. But are you ever really going to lose value by just triggering his 1+1? I think, if anything, this was a nice move by Shanghai, because they somehow anticipated that it would be harder for him to be picked up if that wasn't to happen. I have no idea what's going on there behind the scenes, but it was a very weird move.
He's just not very good in scrims, Yiska. Bad scrimmer right there. Well, I mean, and this is something that I've always said, that I felt like that's why London picked up 12 rosters and 2 of the best Korean rosters in Overwatch League is to trade them all off. I said by the end of season 1, we're lucky if we have half of this team left over.
Yeah.
Because you just sign them for a big amount and then trade them off for like who's actually performing well, or you sell them off to teams that need players. You don't need Gesture and Fissure on the same team. You might like to, but you probably can't afford it for very long.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, I don't know, like it just makes total sense, especially Overwatch League season 1 was totally a buyer's market.
Oh yeah.
Why you don't have 12 people on your roster is just silly to me, because more teams are coming in season 2. They're going to be looking for talent. And as fun as it is to sign contenders teams and contenders rosters and players, it's a risk. We definitely have learned that it is a risk to be able to transfer your Apex or contenders performances into the league format that is Overwatch League. So I don't know. Then again, I'm not a GM. I'm not a coach. That's not me. That's more you guys than I, obviously.
The one thing I do kind of want to bring up when it comes to rosters and trading specifically is that we don't have much else in the way of bargaining. Whereas in like traditional sports, you do have like draft positions that you can add in to sweeten the deal for other teams. Whereas Overwatch, you don't have anything else to kind of throw around. So it's not like, oh, I want to buy Profit, so here's 100K and first round draft pick. It's like, well, that doesn't happen because we don't have anything else. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of postulating what else we could add into Overwatch to add as or use as a bargaining chip. Do you think there's anything?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
I think one thing that could happen is, for instance, if you have a I'm not sure if that's even legal under the Overwatch League, but for instance, let's say you're Spitfire and you have like a prospect that you want to, like you found a kid, he's pretty good, you want to have him, but you obviously won't be able to use him on British Hurricane, right? So maybe you could make a deal with one of the Korean franchises or an academy team that has a full Korean roster, park him there, make sure that there's some way to bring him back, like some pseudo loan, and keep him warm in that regard, right? Something like this could be. I'm not sure if that's at all legally possible, but that's one of the things I could imagine happening.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
That's really creative. I don't know if you can do it, but if you can, that's a really creative solution that I'm surprised people haven't tried, unless it's like very specific in the unposted Overwatch League rules that we still don't have. But we do have a book coming out.
Oh, do we?
We have an Overwatch League book coming out of like the inaugural season thing.
The novelization.
I think my like
Overwatch League.
second highest comment on the competitive subreddit is me going, "Hey, sorry, rules are too hard to post, but here's a full-fledged effing book." Is what I put there, and it has like
novelization.
Yeah,
So
I know.
I'd love to see what that does. If that does well, I'd be shocked, but I cannot imagine that does well.
Yeah, I mean, like for somebody like me, I would probably buy it because again, but look at how much time I put into Overwatch League and creating Overwatch League for all the different. Creating content for Overwatch League for all the different franchises. And I'm also a hoarder. Like I spend money on limited edition stuff. You can't see it, but right over there, I've got my like limited edition BlizzCon 1 in 1,000 poster that they sell for like $150. Opened a credit card up for that one. I'm just kidding.
I think that is one of those things that will be bought as furniture. I'm not saying the
coffee table
the articles in there are bad. I'm just saying that if you're probably willing to pay that premium price, I think it's more like a like a collector's stuff than really being informed about the things.
Oh
in
yeah,
there.
for sure.
I think a majority of those will be fairly untouched in 10 years' time. Yeah,
it's a cool coffee table book. If Overwatch League does well, exists 10 years from now.
Like I feel like you
we
could do a lot with that though, like with like a book of like inside interesting interviews with coaches and players, but I just don't think that's what's going to be in there.
Yeah,
Sligavolt says a rule book would probably sell better.
At this point, yeah, probably an official rule book for $10.
I'd pay $50. I'd pay $50 for a rule book.
50? I don't know. That's a whole expansion.
Assuming that it was impossible for somebody to like post it as a PDF somewhere in all of our secret discords, I don't just get it for free. Like there's this magical new technology. I would pay $50 to know what's in that rule book.
Yeah, I think also just like in the age of the internet, if someone buys that, reads through it, finds that those nuggets are actually novel, that just lands on the subreddit, it's done.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right, and it is. So like assuming there's a world that exists where that's impossible to happen.
Yeah.
What's your price? How much would you pay for an Overwatch rulebook knowing that that's the only way you could get that information?
And I can't find out in my next issue of Nintendo Power?
Oh man, so good. So good.
I'd say anywhere from like 30 upwards to like 50 maybe, I guess. If that was the only way I could get info.
Yeah.
If I can only get my info that way, then yeah, I guess I'd have to. It'd be more of an investment rather than just be like, oh yay, I love Overwatch League, It's more of like a business thing.
How many Reich bucks, Yiska?
Reich bucks.
What?
What's your currency? Is it just euro still?
Yeah, of course it's euro.
Okay.
What was
Deutsche Mark?
Oh yeah.
How many Reich bucks?
Reich bucks. The second you said that, I'm like, I can't tell if that's
that is from a different Germany, my friend.
Okay. Yeah, sure. How many?
Probably not at all. I don't think it would be that interesting to me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What a badass. Yiska's just a badass at everything he does. I can't help it.
I guess the thing would be is that year on year, I guess it would change. And am I willing to spend 30 to 50 on a rulebook 1.2? It's like probably not.
Oh yeah, no way. No way.
You know what I mean? Like the amendments to the rulebook that happen like year on year, they'd have to just print more. So yeah, I probably.
Also, I apologize to the world for my insensitive vocabulary. But
Reich bucks.
We make fun of Yiska for being German. It's just part of what we do. It's about 30% of the show. 30%, maybe like 20%. I don't know. All right, let's talk about what we actually have on track for the show today. So last week we discussed the expansion teams in the Atlantic Division. And of course, we got some messages being like, "Hey, we want to hear about the rest of the teams too." So we were going to jump to the Pacific expansion team signings, but instead we're going to go through the Atlantic non-expansion teams today. That's what we're going to do.
Sure.
It's going to be a great time. It's going to be an awesome time.
Big fun.
And lots of
I like seaweed
going on here. It's going to be a lot going on there. And let's talk about the Boston Uprising here. Boston Uprising.
Boston,
yeah. There's probably no other team in Overwatch League who had as polarizing of a season than Boston. I mean, they went from going undefeated in what was it, stage 2 or 3? I have it right off the top, 3 to like how many wins in stage 4? Like not great. Started off really low as well. Like a team that has definitely seen polarizing success and a little bit of controversy when you consider some of the roster changes that happened at the DPS slot throughout the season. So, and again, we do need to say this. We are discussing official signings as well as rumors. meaning that you could wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden Gamsu isn't on the Uprising anymore, and that could happen. But assume we're just discussing the prevailing rumors from who we deem to be at least credible enough to discuss.
See.
All right. Have I done enough platforming here? Is there anything else that I need to like cover our asses for?
I think Boston is one of those cases where they are probably as malleable at this point as some of the expansion teams still are. I think they're still not in a absolutely finished state from what my understanding is. And yeah, it's very hard to say what the final roster will look like. I've heard so many rumors on all these players, like who's still leaving the team and is being traded. Is someone moving to coach or whatever? That is apparently all on the table. And yeah, the nature of this team could so wildly change that it's very hard to place them for me, I think.
Yep.
I'll try anyway.
Let's talk about what we know, what we think we know so far, right? So with the Uprising, Gamsu, Note, Striker, Kellex, Aim God, Shake, Mr. Bleeple, and Huck are all staying. Mr. Bleeple is kind of changing roles a little bit, kind of, right? He's still going to be actively like, what was
he's
it
still
like
within the team, but he's at college or
continuing
his education.
Kind of like an advisory role. It's like when a CEO leaves, but like I'm still going to be an advisor, and my name's Mike Morheim. Yeah, like it might kind of be that type of situation.
Yeah.
Also, kind of new-ish is Neko may be trialing elsewhere. So at this moment, we believe he's still signed with the Boston Uprising.
Sure,
but. Neko is kind of and you know, I get made fun of all the time, but at the end of season 1, I said that Neko was the most underrated player. That was my pick for most underrated player in Overwatch League, and I didn't get laughed.
Yeah, that's fair.
I didn't get laughed out of the room. I just got chuckled out of the room a little bit. I think either, and anyways, we'll talk about that some other time. But let's talk about some of these new players. So right now we're looking at Axiom, Color Hex. So is it Blaze or Blase? Because accents
I was told it was a Blase when he was in open division, because but this is the thing, his team name was 420 Blase it, and I didn't know if that was more of a Blizzard thing or if that was just actually his name. So I'm gonna assume it's still just Blase. Okay.
And then Gunba coming over to help coaching here. So given with some of these different changes here, I don't want to go over, we don't have to go over any of the all the specific players.
Sure.
What was really interesting to me, Color Hex, New Zealander, he'll be the first Overwatch League player from New Zealand. Player, not including coaches and otherwise.
Sure.
Another Toronto esports person, you know, even before it became the academy team for Boston Uprising, they always pulled heavily from Toronto esports because Huck is heavily tied there, right, Joe?
Yes, he was a former head coach or GM, one of the two, but he was definitely in a managerial position there, and definitely looks to them to scout players and bring people up. We'll see what happens with that team, because I think they're probably going to have to rebrand because of the franchise. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely
go like a Gladiators Legion route, where they're more directly tied to the.
Gonna have to tie a little bit harder to Boston rather than back in Toronto. But
I mean, Team CC does it for Shanghai Dragons.
It's true that they do.
So, that is interesting, though. But at the same time, I know Yiska loves the comparison to traditional sports. But like in the Major League Baseball system, it's not the Minnesota Mini Twins in AAA ball. It's the Rochester,
something completely different.
Something that's completely different, and they just pull from that league. But the important question here, Yiska, is Is this a Boston Uprising right now to you with these additions and the people that they're losing as well? Is this a Boston Uprising that is improving?
No. So it really depends on who gets to stay, if they even can keep their level.
Mhm.
I also think, okay, so I always say that the evaluator is almost more important than the evaluated. And
Mhm.
I'm not sure if with the departure of, I mean, it's very hard to understand or to see if, for instance, was Krusty the guy that picked these players, or was he only the guy that developed these players, right? Was he given what the organization gave him, or what Huck gave him, or was it his choice, right? So assuming that at least some of the responsibility for picking players was on Krusty, I think also some of the ability to pick these players is gone. Certain other factors in that regard are also gone, and it also looks like that the market situation that we find ourselves in now, like, come back to the idea of who was actually picked up by Boston Uprising. It was Gamzu, right?
Mhm.
It was Neko, Kalios, Striker, right? These, was it 4 Koreans? I think it
and
might.
then they added Aim God somewhere
Yes.
between stage 2 and stage 4. So I mean,
Yeah,
obviously,
those are the 4. Yeah, nice.
They sort of took those Korean players that weren't quite tier 1 talent at the time, and then developed them up there. Those let's call them tier 2 talents, are all bought out, all by the expansion teams. That complete grazing ground, if you want, is completely oversaturated. They don't have the option of getting it there. So what's the next ground? Obviously the Western regions, right? And I personally don't think that they will be on par with whatever the other teams have to offer. The question is their development, is their system still intact with the people that have left them, right? Because, for instance, I don't know if, like, Bleeple was, for instance, I believe, the statistical analyst. Maybe he has done some work for them already in order to choose these talents, and maybe they found the diamonds in the rough that way. But I'm not sure how involved he is at this point, where my information is that they're not done with picking players. And I don't know, like, who's doing that now? That's my question, right? And yeah, I personally think this Boston Uprising is not only worse than last year's Boston Uprising, it is also comparatively worse in the hierarchy of teams, because also the expansion teams most of them are doing a good job.
Sure.
And the already existing season 1 teams, they are also upgrading. And I'm afraid some of them are upgrading past what Boston Uprising is able to do.
So, I mean, I think this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. I mean, the Boston Uprising obviously made a name for themselves in season 1 for being this Moneyball type team, where you take these drastically underrated players who can play in a system, and you put them in the system and hopefully bring out more than what people saw how they were performing individually in competitions prior. Joe, do you think that we are poised for a season 2 expectation upset like we saw in season 1 with Boston?
I'm gonna lean. I don't know, right? And that's the interesting thing about Boston, is that it is going to be a big litmus test, like Yiska had mentioned.
Yeah.
This is going to be the test of the system. You know, there have been rumors floating around. I'm not too sure on how substantiated and reason they are. That Krusty was gone from the team before the beginning of stage 3, and that's a big kind of credit that people often give him, is that he kind of led the team to a point in stage 3 that they could go undefeated, which I thought was interesting for that to come out. So that's kind of interesting
Yeah.
that maybe they do have a stronger coaching staff than we had, already acclimated. But again, it's a rumor. We don't actually know.
I don't like the line of argument here because that would almost be like saying the first quarter of a president's
Sure, exactly.
economy is towards like you can't say that that's on the new president. It probably isn't. The system was in place.
Sure.
Like
Topical. I love it.
The trajectory is there, and even if you like remove the pillar that keeps the trajectory up, the trajectory might go like this, but it's still going upwards, right? So I don't know if the absolute removal, let's say that hypothetically, of Krusty for stage 3 would necessarily mean that his work didn't bear fruits in stage 3.
And when you look at their players that they're potentially getting, Color Hex, Blase, Neko leaving the team, which is a big hamstring to them. That's kind of losing one of their better support players. It's definitely not.
Yeah,
good.
I mean, AimGod is a pretty good slot in. I gotta say,
he's not bad. But do you really want to lose another person that was fairly talented? It's up for debate, I suppose. But just looking at them, I think it is going to be a big test of exactly what the coaches can really do. Obviously they're bringing in new people to kind of help filter that out. And Gunba I've heard nothing but good things from people talking about his time on Valiant, and even before that, very, very smart. Apparently did pretty well there, if I only hearing good things. But for the most part, this roster just looks like it's a kind of a development cycle for them. So yes, it's going to be a test on their eye test specifically. And I'm not big on them, to be honest with you. From just what we've seen so far, I can't say that it's too terribly impressed right off the bat. There's a potential they could Boston up and flex real hard, but on paper I think this is probably written off as an off year for them. They're looking to scout new players, get them in, give them a 2 year, and then we're aiming for season 3. But I'll be impressed if they can make playoffs, and I don't think that's.
I'll straight up tell you, the way this is shaping up, their season 3 will actually be worse than their season 2. Simply because of the 1+1s.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting.
The way that I'm looking at it is that they bring them in, they fit within the system. If they don't, you get rid of them. Season 3, you're looking at a new peak Boston. You have the systems in place with the players. They fit well within it. They know what to expect. Just from the roster that they have listed, you still have to fill that out a little bit more. So I'm kind of anticipating some more signings for them. And I can't imagine that they're going to grab anybody that has that experience. And I think you do need that to really do well. I think the league format's completely different from what people are playing in the tier 2 division and even in the tier 3. So I think getting into the swing of very purposeful practice and preparation for teams is definitely a new thing for players, because when they play in a tournament or they play in group stages, it's different. It's a best of one. You're not really looking at what's coming in the future. It's just a different preparation environment. So I think for the most part, you're bringing in people from contenders from other regions, and it's going to be different. So fitting them within that system, that we'll see what happens with, it's going to be a big test. So we'll see. But my long and short of it, TLDR, not my favorite Boston Uprising ever.
Boston Uprising finished 3rd at the end of season 1. For those at home who don't have Wikipedia open right now, there's no way they're finishing 3rd in season 2. I just don't see that as a possibility.
Yes.
I don't see them placing 8th or 10th.
I think that's the ceiling.
I think if the system works, they place 10th. Yeah. If the system doesn't work, they sit down, 14, 15, 16. I just don't see that even the skill ceiling of these players, and no offense to the players, but there's just I just don't see this as a team that is really competitive. And, you know, who knows what they're doing? Maybe they're saving up for more infrastructure for season 3 when you get into the geographical locations. Who knows what those type of changes are going to bring to Overwatch League overall. And, you know, for me personally as a fan, as well as somebody who, you know, covers Overwatch League very regularly, Season 3 is really the Season 1 that we're looking forward to, right? Season 1 and Season 2 are proofs of concepts and really just all about franchise building at this point. It's not really super important that you win if people don't love your franchise at the end of it all. And I think, you know, you look at some of the teams where, you know, like I would say the Florida Mayhem have done a great job of not winning, but they've also done a great job at building a really passionate fan base down in the, you know, southeast part of the United States. And that's going to translate to hopefully more money, which means that better, hopefully translate to better players, until we find out more information about salary. You know, there is some sort of soft cap that we believe we know about Overwatch League franchises, where after you hit a certain, I forget what the amount was. I thought it was like 5 to 10 million. And once you start spending over that amount, you get like taxed a lot harder on every dollar you spend or something. I need to find my source on that again.
Yeah.
But
are you talking about the roster sources, like the soft salary cap? Oh,
yeah, he's talking about the soft salary cap.
Okay.
The soft salary cap.
Significantly low.
Yeah. Anyway, so like there's stuff like that exists, but I don't know. Like Boston Season 2, there's no way that they're improving. There's no way that they're bringing a third place team.
Okay, so like let's say this, right? We said last episode, I think already, that this was sort of like the Wizard Young, you know, like, okay, show us the real deal. And if your Moneyball approach works, this is the season where you show it. If your system works, Huck, and you actually make it a playoff team with the players we currently know, yep, you figured it out, boy.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll be happy.
Undeniably true, right? So if that actually happens, I don't believe at this point that it's possible, but if it happens, chapeau.
Yep, fair enough. Wow, we talked a long time about the Boston Uprising. Let's talk about the Florida Mayhem. Florida Mayhem, oof is right. Their inaugural season leaves them at 7 wins and 33 losses, second to last behind the Shanghai Dragons. So if you take an own 40 team out of it, they're last in the league, and by a pretty significant margin. Lots of changes here. Probably one of the teams that has changed the most. When Overwatch League began, they announced Misfits, Ben Spunt as the owners of that initial, one of the first of the 7 franchises in Overwatch League, actually, was the Florida Mayhem announced alongside of, you know, Robert Kraft and NYXL. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that were there, but they were announced as the initial 7. The Misfits have a great partnership with the Miami Heat as kind of being something. So there's a lot of excitement, especially for those of you down in the southeast part of the region. I know it. I'm advocating for you here. You love your Florida team. As many times as they let you down, you love them. I get it. I understand. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. I've only ever been let down by the Minnesota Vikings, so I get it. Come in, awful first season. Lots of negative vibes being sent from kind of higher management on like Tavik driving the bus kind of thing. Like that's going to be forever the meme is which player is driving the bus for the Mayhem.
Why haven't they like gone on that? Like why not make like content around it? And just
because the Valiant did it with In and Out and it's just not funny.
Accept it like Philly and Valiant did, you know? Just take it in
because it's not funny.
Run with it.
It is not funny.
It'd be hilarious.
Every time I hear a Valiant In and Out reference, I'm just like, you're funny. How about you just raise your professionalism a little bit?
But they could make it kind of funny if they like accepted that that's a joke now. Like you could like, haha, look, you know, and they kind of have, just like the players I think have done that, where it's like, oh no, we're going to in and out, you know, who's going to get cut type of stuff, where I think like if Florida really wanted to embrace the whole Tavik bus driver, you know, he pulls
Didn't they
up
do
and
that for
picks
a
up
walk-in or something like that? Am I remembering that wrong?
I don't know.
Where they had the players like behind Tavik and he walked in like...
He might have.
I don't know. Anyways, if you don't, Mayhem, that's for free.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Anyways, obviously an awful... Basically, and so they signed this team, formerly known as Misfits, who had some great successes in Western Overwatch. We can definitely talk for probably about 20 minutes just about how impactful those actual tournaments were. You know, was it kind of the Dallas Fuel Envy type rose-colored glasses where you see this is the best team in Western Overwatch because they won an Apex and they won a bunch of cleanup tournaments over in the West, right? You can definitely, there's definitely a whole conversation to be had there, but ultimately they signed this team, very Finnish, very European, didn't do well. Bring on players like awesome guy, Saya player, bring on a coach, Ryder. Still like didn't quite make it click. Played better. Definitely looked better on the second half than the first half. And then boom, they're all gone. Just imagine everybody except for Tavik gone as far as your Western players go. And now, I mean, they've signed some new Western players, to be fair. But that initial Misfits roster, gone. Yiska, I need to hear from you here. We've got, I mean, a ton of new talent here. You've got Zephyr coming back from the Soul Dynasty. You've got Swan. You've got BQB, which we're not going to have the boosting conversation today. We're not doing it. We're avoiding it.
Thank God.
Apply from the United States. Hagapun, one of your favorite players of all time, as I understand.
Part of the Triple H squad that Yiska loves so much.
Oh, man. Masa, Chris brought in Bare Hands, GM for NYXL last season. Send Wizard Hyung. Send Wizard Hyung to DC. Send Bare Hands to Florida. What's your thought here on the new Florida Mayhem? Will they get more than 7 wins? I guess kind of 6 when you account for the new total number of games being played. Is this a team that's going to improve?
So the thing is, I'm looking at these names and it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. So one obvious factor is, what is Tavik doing on that roster? Is he actually learning Korean? What's going on there? Why are you keeping probably the only like guy that possibly starts? I don't know, like in a Western team. Couldn't you have shopped him elsewhere? Did you want to stay there? Did you want to play in a Korean team? Is that your franchise player? Whatever, right? Like, okay, these questions, if you have a good answer to those, fine, right? Then they sign a lot of these players before even Bare Hands comes in. So I'm not even sure. Obviously, you can attribute the team building aspect, at least to some regard. We don't know behind the scenes, but like Bare Hands was there for that. So for the NYXL, obviously. But you can't even attribute most of the team building here probably to him, unless he was already working with them in a consultancy relationship before they decided to bring him on, right? So this team is, if I had to put a mean name on it, it's washed up has-beens. Every player at some point had some promise and then absolutely underperformed for the vast majority of time. Awesome guy last season was already and then actually went downwards, right? Zephyr definitely has been on the downward spiral ever since he joined Soul Dynasty back then. Swan, I don't have too much to go on to talk about him here. Okay, Saya player, that's your shining beacon in that regard. BQB is not the worst signing. Apply, won't be playing much unless you want to break off his two-way contract. Then Hagopian.
So this is I am interrupting you right now because this is brand new, breaking news. Literally 12:59 p.m. It's 1:03. Let's give a big Boston welcome to our new Boston Up player, Blase.
Yep.
So
so it's confirmed.
Confirmed.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I know you're on a rant. I get it.
Yeah.
But confirmed.
No, that's fine.
Welcome to Overwatch.
So backline. What a dumpster fire! What an absolute dumpster fire.
It is strange to me.
So one thing to sort of take care of people's feelings, right?
Sure.
All that matters really realistically is trajectory. How's your movement right now? Are you going up or are you going down? I'm currently talking about a snapshot on that graph of up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And the snapshot I'm seeing, based on the data I have, is very low on the y-axis, right? These players, both Hagopian, massive decrease in overall value as a support player. And Chris, he hasn't even played. Right? So this guy's peak was when? Apex Season 2?
Yeah.
Hella good peak, though, by the way.
It was a fantastic peak,
sure.
but it fits within that theme of just a lot of players that had promise at one point have fallen, and now we're trying to make some sort of old boys, reunion party. And
to me, this is still a Gambler story all over again for me. And Gambler even had a more legitimate claim to a roster spot than Chris has at the time, and Gambler didn't work out. So I don't know what's happening there.
He does have a long stint with Saya player though.
He does, but I just don't think that.
Yeah, are we bringing fans in now?
Yeah,
or
I don't know.
Make Saya player feel less bad about being flattered in Fleshlights?
Whoa, sir. Number one, I don't think that you can say. I mean, how much better was Zebazai and Zuba than these guys?
I don't think he's saying that it's not an improvement from the last roster. I think he's looking at their individual careers so far. So like Hagopian's career, he peaked Apex Season 4 in APAC 2017, massively dropped in London, didn't look good at all. And now he's found his way onto this other roster. Same thing with Chris. Peaked in Apex Season 2. Metathena could never find that same success. Has fallen off. Now he finds his way on Florida.
Well, I get it, and I get like Yiska is going to take the route of, if I can't measure it, it's almost like assume the worst. And I understand that. I get that, especially when you have great case studies like Gambler, where easily one of the best, comes into Overwatch League, and I mean, did he even really play?
Nah, he didn't play that much, and I think if I remember correctly, he talked about on length that it just wasn't what he was really interested in. Like, there was a ton of work involved, and he's like, I don't think I love this game that much if I'm not having fun with it. I'd rather just.
We also didn't get to see Hago's Zen. We didn't in Overwatch League Season 1, or sorry, not Zen, Ana. We didn't get to see that part of Hago, which
I do tend to agree with that, and that's something that I've brought up a lot, is that his Zen didn't look good. It's the same thing with Jayhongs. It's like, okay, well, if we put him on something else, does he look better? And there's a possibility, but having being berated to death enough times, I do have to omit that there are a ton of contenders' talents that I almost think are better at those heroes than Hago. So I'll be happy to be wrong and him just completely do really well, but I still have to err on the side of it's still not going to be great.
For the Hago signing, there's a few things for me that this reads. Number one, they got him on a really good deal.
Oh yeah.
Number two, I think they emphasize his Overwatch League experience a little bit more heavily. Number three, I think Ana I think that they're hoping Ana
Sure.
is a bigger factor going
Which she
into
probably will be, to be fair.
season 2, and number 3 having Chris, assuming Chris takes one of his pre-Overwatch League platforms as one of the best Lucios in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's the bet that they're taking there. I think it's a risky bet, but
Okay, so
apparently
Joe, here's the gun to your head. You have to say now, gun to your head, Boston or Florida, who finishes higher?
Florida.
easily.
No.
Easily.
Really?
Easily.
You don't think?
Oh man,
No.
easiest thing
I
in the
don't
world.
think so. I look at Saya player. I look at BQB. I haven't seen a lot of Swan. I'm sorry. Who was formerly Butcher, but I do have fond memories. But again, that's this kind of team in a nutshell, is lots of memories. But I do kind of get the same vibes, though. It's funny you bring up Boston instead of, Huck in the system. I'm looking at Bare Hands in the system. If we're gonna, attribute Bare Hands and then the success of NYXL and pair those off, then if he's amazing, then this team should be great. We'll have to see.
This is a top. Like, this is, if they finish below 12th.
I think I'd be willing to take that bet that Florida probably laps Boston.
Yep, easily.
Yep,
Easiest.
I'd take that.
I don't agree with Joe often on this show. I don't. I really like Yiska.
No?
I love
How is
Yiska.
it even possible? Like, Joe has a baseline percentage of being 50% on everything. How can you not agree with Joe?
Joe's a
That's
gambler.
Basically,
Joe's a
breaking
gambler.
open
He's
the
right.
yin and the yang of the universe, dude. You
He's-
find some
Here's the
way to
thing.
disagree with the yin and yang. It's impossible.
I just, like Joe, I love the way that I love the way that Yiska presents his arguments, and I'm much less emotional. I try to be anyways, in, landing my predictions and stuff. And Yiska, Yiska is typical German. No emotion
Yiska's-
from it at all. None.
Really?
Someone said a reminder, by the way, just after the season, how it looks, or mid-season, or
Someone just create
over
a
event
giant
this.
chart of where we're placing all of these. Also, let us know how many overlap. Like, I think we have
could we
8
do that
teams
for
at
an
12.
episode? Yeah, we should do that for an episode and create a skeleton document and then fill out each one in the preseason and then revisit it mid-season and postseason just to see what we thought and then what we think then.
sure.
Mineral is still with the organization as of now.
Yes, as of today.
Chat.
And again, the coaching staff, it's Mineral, Ryder, and from I believe it was Optic Academy / GGEA, if I'm remembering that correctly. It's a coaching staff. I don't have too much to say on that. I think there was a lot of, who was it, Yiska? Because I think you'll be able to remember.
So
Who was it that talked about the issue with Ryder that, he was like, this person that I am blanking on who it was, kind of was throwing a little bit of shade at him, saying that we didn't really learn anything because he kept saying we needed to learn the fundamentals first. Do you remember who that was?
That was Ryder, yeah.
Yeah, but who's the
said
player?
that.
Okay. I wonder if that's could be remedied with this team, where it's now we can actually start with some coaching. If that was the case, if not, we're back to fundamentals, which I don't hate. But yeah, I do have to take you on that offer and say that Florida's probably going to do better. I look at their DPS line and I go, okay, that's probably good enough.
One thing that has to go into your favor, Yiska, is that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Koreans on that roster now. 7.
That's just the worst Korean roster in the Overwatch League.
I mean, it's possible that they are.
There's no satisfying. I mean, honestly, it might be.
Yeah, it very well could be.
I mean,
one of the worst full Korean rosters, but I still think at that point it's better than what rumors we're hearing about Boston. You know what I mean?
Yeah. By the way, if they actually make a huge signing in terms of coach, don't hold me to this.
Yeah, sure.
The coach
all of this can change. All
Yes.
of it can change. I don't think we have. Well, I guess technically all these player changes are confirmed. that we've discussed.
Specifically for Florida, but if like Boston comes out and they're like, you know, we got rid of this player and now we're bringing in, you know, banger, you know, opinions definitely could change on that. So, you know,
fair enough.
From what we know now, I'm saying Florida over Boston. Yiska's saying Boston over Florida. We'll have to see.
In my opinion, apparently doesn't matter. So,
well, you're in there too.
That's why you mentioned me. I get it. I understand.
Yep. You disagree with him once and suddenly
I don't exist.
You don't exist.
He's on my blacklist.
Unbelievable. Spiteful. It's Joe Spiteful Volamel. It's actually his full name. His last name is actually Volamel.
What nationality is that?
Where does Volamel even come from?
I googled. Okay, funny story. We'll tangent off of this. I got my name from hitting randomize in World of Warcraft, rearranged it, and that's how I got Volamel. And then I googled it years later, and apparently it's a German plant growth hormone.
I've never heard of it.
I'm sure it's not. I don't know.
It was authenticity in question.
So you're basically plant Viagra.
Hell yeah. I like that. I like to concern myself more like plant Cialis, but you know, Viagra works.
Nice.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a fun show, and no, we're not done. We've got so much more to talk about. Let's talk about the Houston Outlaws.
Houston,
the Houston Outlaws. No changes at tank so far. Spree, Muma, and Coolmat, I believe, are all still there. Is Spree still there, right? I don't know.
I believe so.
He was just with Outlaws in London, wasn't he? That would be some cold stuff.
Yeah.
DPS, Linkser, Arhan, and Jake from last season, adding Dante from the San Francisco Shock, supports Bonnie Boink and Raucus. The All-American support line right there. They're not American, but you know what I'm saying. They just haven't changed, and people just love them. Staff: Tyron, Messer, Hyunwoo, Clockwork, saying I'm too good at Tracer. Let me coach our Tracers because we need someone just discussing Tracer at this point. And of course, Flame at GM. No major changes here except for adding Dante. Really, at this point, right?
Yep, and letting go of Fact, right?
Yes.
Fact Fiction.
Letting go of Fact Fiction, moving Clockwork to a assistant coaching role. And Mendo still.
Did that really matter though?
Still doing Mendo things.
Yeah. Now he's just not clogging up a slot on the roster.
Yeah. Just doing things. 2A player maybe, season 2. Who knows? We'll see.
I don't know.
Why not? Why not at this point?
Because their academy team is imploding on itself.
Sounds like a reason to put Mendo in. I don't know. Like, this is so. Yiska, this is a thing for me. Is where it is staying the same, an upward trajectory for the Houston Outlaws here.
No, staying the same in this Overwatch League climate is going downwards.
No,
everyone's getting better.
I just have a hard time believing that Dante is the best. I think
it's their best cultural fit.
Cultural fit, sure, but I don't care about cultural fit if you keep losing.
Well, they had a sort of solid season, and I think they believe they can come back to stage 1. I tend to disagree, but I'm not feeling any particular way about Houston as a team. I think they have been pretty clear on what kind of system they want to run. They've stayed true to it. Like, it certainly helps with fan base building if you have a staying roster where the people can get familiar with them. It's certainly heartbreaking when the social media team builds up players and then all of them are gone after the season, starting from scratch again, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't even have that much to say about the Outlaws. I think in comparative terms, where did they finish? Did they finish 7th? this
somewhere
season?
middle of the pack.
7th, 8th?
So for the entire league, they finished 7th at 22 and 18.
7th. So,
Started off 7-3, second place in stage 1. Went down to 5-5 in stage 2, 4-6 in stage 3, and then back up to 6-4 in stage 4.
Yeah. They're also not a team that can particularly peak high, I think. So I don't know if they can win that play-in. They're just 11th to 9th for me.
I feel like this is a really consistently mediocre team. I really do. I mean, you have like 7-3 to 4-6. That's your margin of error, and I think that doesn't change in season 2.
Yeah.
I just wonder. Okay, so this is the way that I'm kind of looking at it, because I'm finding myself slightly a little bit higher on them just from what we've seen meta-wise right now. So we see Zarya becoming a much more viable full-time pick, which obviously lends itself to Spree. Diva obviously still isn't going anywhere, so Cool Matt's still up there. Muma still very, very good flex or main tank. Dante coming in fills a role that they need. Linkser,
Maybe not as
I would
well as anybody else, but yep, he fills a role. Sure.
see. That's where I don't know. If, like, for instance, like if we're going to snapshot this meta and assume that it's going to continue on into the future, I don't know of anybody else who I trust with the experience and the kind of prestige with his Sombra to kind of lap him. You know what I mean? Like he even made Sombra work for San Francisco and looked pretty good at it.
For like the first 3 weeks, sure,
yeah.
in stage 4, like half of it.
Sure. But I just don't know anybody else in contenders that would be able to do that with the experience that he brings on other heroes and just within the league itself. So I like that. I do have to say that I like the Dante pickup. I think it made a lot of sense even in, midway through the season, and people were kind of calling for it. I do think Linkser needs some help. And I just don't. Why? I don't know that it's just a big consistency issue with him. It's a big, like, 1 week he could be feeling himself. It feels like, and that's completely speculation on my behalf, but there's 1 week, he's completely feeling himself and he's popping off with Widow and it's really good. The next week, it's not even remotely as close. You can say that about a lot of people, but I feel like he has a lot more burden on him to be the Widow Genji flex DPS, that I think you need someone that can just bring a baseline level. And if he's playing well, put him in. And if he's not, maybe let him rest for a little bit, because he seems like the player that needs to recharge a little bit. Arhan still doesn't make sense to me on this team. I'm glad that he works well with Tyrong, but never really was a big fan. His Genji, again, is mechanically fine, but it's a very stylistic Genji that needs a team built around him. I just don't think that's this team. And I wonder what's going to happen with Jake. We've seen him pursue a lot more casting as of late. I don't know if he's being courted by the Overwatch League or whatnot. I'd love to see somebody like Mangachu maybe step in to fill that projectile role, maybe specialize in some other off picks, and give Linkser a break if he needs one. Same thing with Arhan. I wouldn't mind seeing him maybe be benched for a Western, hit scan specialist like Shax, for instance, right?
You think that with a Korean head coach and Korean coach, that they still are best suited by a Western prospect?
I think if you're going to have a ton of other Western players, yeah. If they were leaning more towards a mixed roster, I could maybe understand it, but Arhan being the only Korean on the roster,
honestly, that's my question: is why do you have all this on your coaching staff? You bring in Tyron, you bring in Hyunwoo, and then you bring in Arhan after the fact.
Yeah.
And then you still pseudo try to stay true to this all Western, again, something that Western people can cheer for, and you've got a cool logo. It still doesn't make sense to me. I just don't understand why that's what they're trying to do.
I think you can have a Korean coaching staff and have them coach a Western roster. I do think they'll probably need a translator at some point. I think in some of their content and some of their shoulder content, Mezer was pretty adamant in talking about how he kind of has to explain maybe what Tyrong's reasoning is to the players, because there is a kind of language barrier there. But we've seen historically in other esports that you could still kind of make it work. It's a little bit more difficult, but for the most part, if that's the best person for the job, it is what it is. But I don't hate this backline. I really don't. I look at Boink, the statistical outlier.
I hate this Outlaws.
Really?
I hate this Outlaws.
I don't know why, but I'm a little bit more positive
like
than
15th.
I kind of want to be. Really?
15th.
What?
This is a team that's flat-footed. It's just flat-footed while everyone's moving forward, making changes, understanding how for me, this is a team that says this is a team beating their head against the wall. You know what? We did middle of the pack last year. Let's just try to do that again. And then while everyone else is making changes, here's what we learned from all this stuff. Outlaws is like, no, you. We figured it out, and this is actually going to work. That's what this reads to me. And I understand I'm probably going to get a lot of hate from that. There's no way we're actually going to be able to tell until the end of season 2. Go ahead, clip it, save it in your folders, save it in your claim chowder folder. I have a claim chowder folder. On one of those is Doa saying that he'll never go see the new Matrix reboot. So I've got a claim chowder. I've got a claim chowder folder.
Oh, jeez.
Got a claim chowder folder. Put that in your claim chowder folder. If they finish above 15th, I will be really surprised. And it won't be because they're good. It'll be because there are 5 other franchises who just completely misunderstood the Overwatch League format and how to succeed in it.
I'll go out on a limb. You can quote me on this.
Yep.
At first, season 1, I marked them and Dallas as the 2 most overrated teams. I think Houston coming into season 2 is the most underrated team. For the reasons you just gave, because everybody looks at them and says,
"Everybody." I don't feel like I'm in a majority here. I feel very much in a minority here.
Really?
I do.
Maybe I'm just assuming that people kind of think, and I agree with you. I don't get me wrong. I agree with your reasoning. I just look at
don't like the final placement of the.
Yeah, that's all. I do think that they could place surprisingly high if the meta is going in that direction to give their support line a better choice.
Can't you say that for just about any team though?
There are a lot of teams that do get a bonus if this continues. And I don't know. I am pretty high on that support line and that tank line. I do have to say, I think their DPS just is probably their weakest lineup. Their DPS line is the weakest.
Their DPS is. I think that we definitely saw their tank line get exploited in a lot of different ways. Like, especially stage 1 and stage 2, you would look at Muma and Coolmat and be like, holy those guys, like, they make even the best Korean tank duos kind of look silly. They look really great. And I've, talked and ranted many a time on how good they look. And then you kind of see them. You kind of saw their back line, and you kind of saw their strategy overtake the actual tank line, kind of being one of those things. They relied a lot on Linkser. I know you're not high on Linkser, but they relied a lot on him.
100%.
He's the anti-Widow. And in 2 stages, that was basically about the better Widow wins. You want somebody who cares what else he hits as long as he hits that other Widow.
I completely agree. And that's my big thing is if we can see a little bit more pressure, lifted off of his shoulders, maybe he becomes more consistent. Maybe his worries and his, internal struggle that he has to sit there and hold so much of that hero pool for the DPS line on his back. Maybe he becomes more consistent. We'll have to see, but I agree with you that, again, middle of the pack is probably where I put them. I do think there's a chance that they could peak, though. I think they could maybe squeak into playoffs as the wild card if the meta continues. If Lucio can consistently be picked as a mainstay support duo, I think they have a good shot.
Fish in chat says I'm underestimating the value of growing a fan base and future ticket sales. No, I'm not. You just heard me rant about the Florida Mayhem and how well they are doing that. And in the Boston Uprising for that. You just heard me talk for probably too long about how good these teams are, even though they might suck in season 2, how great they are at setting up things in the future. So, no, I don't think you heard that part. Thank you for your comment. But if there's anything unclear there, I was very clear about how likely I think it is that these teams, season 1 and season 2, are preseason. They really are in a lot of ways.
I will say this about Outlaws. What I've heard is they were very quick after a break to get back to scrimming and stuff. That wasn't the absolute norm for the Overwatch League teams. I think they want to grind it out, found out some of the weaknesses they had in the last season, and are currently course correcting for them because there's so much time to do that, right? So I think that helps them to remain at their level in comparative terms, which is just below the playoff cutoffs. Yep. Then again, I think to interpret their peak in stage 1 as a peak is probably incorrect, simply because that was the stage where people were still getting used to stuff, right? So for them, because they were already all together and had it all together, I don't know how much telling power that has in terms of their total peaks. And after that, it actually didn't look that convincing anymore. So they were close to being a playoff team in season 1. And I don't think they will completely bottom out. I don't see that happening. Then again, I would have to once again go through my list who I expect to be there. And
we're gonna rank everybody. I think probably for like an episode or two before Overwatch League season 2 starts. We're just gonna literally go down 1 through 20 and talk through our picks.
Yeah, we can go like a triple blind and just be like, all right, who do you have at 20? Yep. And then list and then explain, and then who do you have at 19? Like that's like a mega episode though. Like it would take multiple hours to do, but yeah, I definitely want to do that in the future.
Days worth of tactical crouch.
Probably we could go on for.
Let's talk about the London Spitfire, shall we?
Yes.
London Spitfire.
The champions.
Ep Tank, Jester Fury rumored. DPS Prophet overrated. Birdring underrated. Guard supports Nuss, Bedosin, Krillin. And then you've got Staff, Coach 815, brand new. J-Feel, Agape, Robin coming in at the team manager position. Presumably, has that been debunked yet, or is that still?
No, that was always the case. I think
that was always. Yeah. I thought with Robin leaving the scene though.
No, different Robin.
Different Robin. Why didn't you guys tell me this?
I didn't know what Robin you're talking about. I was just like,
there's too many Robins. Robins.
He's like also a photographer though, so that's why I was like, oh, maybe he's like super into photography.
Robin, change your thing.
Handle.
Anyways. Yeah, change it. So closer gone, right? That's most recently, and the rest of these teams, rest of these players were dropped back in June. We lost Hureg, Uyal, Agapune, and Tizzy, right? So closer though is new, the 15th of this month. What, like that's a week ago. I must have just missed that. To the Dallas Fuel, by the way. Pretty interesting. So signing on then, presumably, so Guard, they announced the next day, 10/16. That I believe is confirmed.
Yes.
Krillin confirmed on the 17th. So those two, Guard and Krillin, are confirmed. And I don't think that there's any other changes there, right? Organization changes, maybe?
Not that I've seen.
No, not really, no. So that's it. So this is a team that's definitely not changing up too much here. They probably don't need to. They won Overwatch League Season 1. It looked great. Did well. You know, especially in playoffs. Definitely had their ups and downs that season.
Yep.
Joe, where do you land here?
am I the only one who kind of wanted a little bit more with DPS signings?
They're coming. I can't believe that there's not more is coming. I believe they're coming.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any information to go on, but I don't think I would gamble once again on Birdring.
No.
The entire season.
Again, that's like a Florida Mayhem. I look at him the same way that I look at a lot of the Florida Mayhem players. At one point, they were amazing. You look at Birdring, best tracer in the world for a couple seasons straight of Apex. That's fabulous for its time. But as of right now, he's a big game player, which is great. But if you never make it to the big games, what happens? I do have to worry about him. I think he's worth keeping on board, and maybe that's why they brought on Guard. He feels like he fills out a similar role. I just don't know if he has a Widow. But I know for a fact he has a killer Sombra, and I tend to correlate a proficiency in Sombra to at least a serviceable tracer. But again, I look at Prophet. If he can continue to be the absolute monster, the stud that he is, and just pop off with many heroes all at once, then fabulous. But I do kind of feel a little bit lackluster about this DPS line, but everything else, I'm super jazzed to see. I'm interested to see what this open division player Krillin has to show. I think that's going to be a fun little homage back to Jonak if he can really be an absolute killer. But and it'll kind of show what lies in store for us in season 3 of Overwatch League, where I can pull a no-name open division player straight from solo queue and put him on my team, and he can be amazing and a top 6 starter. What else is there out there? Who are some of the talents that we haven't even seen yet? I think that's a fun narrative that I want to explore. But I don't hate this team. I still think they're going to be high playoff division.
Yeah.
But I do have questions.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, if we're talking about, so like real quick rundown.
Yeah.
Gesture, highly flexible.
Sure.
Probably best tank in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Fury, very good off tank, possibly top 3 in the world. Prophet, best player in the world. Guard, very good Sombra. Birdring, very high peaks, but also predictably high peaks. That's what I like about him. Nus, if there's a meta where there actually have to be 2 flex support, like traditionally like Zen Ana, he was bad, dude. He used to be flex support for meta, it was, I believe, right?
Yes, him and
Athena. And my lord, he was for me one of the I endearingly called him cruise ship anchors, because he simply, yes. So I'm looking forward to what Krillin can do.
Mm-hmm.
Coach 1815 is, by the way, very interesting, because what people have to understand about a lot of these Korean teams is the head coach actually doesn't have to be super deep in the strategy of Overwatch or of the game they're coaching. They enforce good habits.
Yes.
With an iron fist, right? And if this guy could teach basically everything at this point, and then he always, over the time, now a lot of months to go, he learns the game. This could be a very good pickup, especially if you think you had internal struggles in that department, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that's why, for instance, Lil Suzy was brought on, and it went slowly, the trajectory went upwards for them once again, right? So, okay, DPS spot. You ready for this, Joe? You know who I want on that? I want to trade.
Dante.
You want to trade?
I want to trade.
Trade for Dante.
Oh, are you gonna...
I want Striker, my dude. I want Striker there.
Yeah, I could see that. Just on paper, I could see that. I don't know how much I like it, but I see where you're going.
Yeah. No, I think so. Just to sort of substantiate this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think as a tracer player, striker had an upwards trajectory, and in that he was very consistent. Then obviously the meta came around, and he had to sort of relearn his role and went with Widow. But once again, yes, the snapshot at the end of the season wasn't the best Widow in the world, but he went from really underwhelming to pretty serviceable in a reasonably short amount of time. So I trust his trajectory, and I trust his consistency in consistently becoming better, right? So
that's fair.
I think he could be the bedrock that, like, if you can get him now, just keeps improving and then is always there at a base level, possibly peaking lower than Birdring does on some of these heroes. But that's what you want. You want the baseline play that has a very, very high... I made a video on this. Like, I compared it to, like, if you want to get someone's feet wet, you either can raise the tide, meaning you can, have it very consistently, and the guy, just becomes better incrementally, or you can have huge splashes of waves and get the guy's feet wet that way, which is Birdring, with his high peaks in Widow play and whatever. So, like, this would be quite interesting, I think, if they could somehow... I have no idea what it takes, honestly. It takes a lot, probably. Yeah, if that could work, I'm hyped for this team.
So where do you land them then, Yiska? Where did they land for you? I might have missed it if I walked away and you said this, but where did they land for you at the end?
Easy top 4.
Yeah.
Top 4? Same. Honestly, same.
Yeah.
I'm so bullish on teams that win leagues, and when they make minimal changes, like, it's really difficult for me to justify and say, like, yeah, well, they're not going to be that good next year or whatever. If they lost key players, if they lose a Prophet, they lose Birdring, they lose Gesture.
Thing I do want to mention real fast, not to cut you off, is with Coach 815, right? He has a lot of experience in other games, but I worry, and doomsday scenario. You're stepping as a new coach into a world championship team. Is there an issue integrating him in? I mean, the roster seemingly, at least to me, has had ego issues before with, having so much so to having to cut half your roster midway through the season. Is there any world where the coach is a hard add to the team because they're already kind of, bolstered by their own ego, and maybe there's issues there? Yeah, I don't know, but
yeah, these are certainly questions.
Yeah, I still, like, just on paper, top 4 for sure. But I do have some questions that I'm
glad we can agree.
This is always right. Like, the ability for former champions to stay hungry is actually not that often achieved.
No,
let's say that.
Yeah.
Like, you actually, like, if you're a player whose biggest dream was to win the Overwatch League, I hope you can shift to, my biggest dream is to be the best player in the world, or in the history of the game. If you can't do that, how are you going to even motivate yourself to get something on the road, right? So
it definitely takes a toll on you. I think that's what happened with Envy. You win season 1. Now what? I've achieved something no one else in the history of esports within the last 10 years has been able to do with something that monumental. I do agree with you. It has to be pretty difficult to consistently keep that fire lit and be able to train like you were to get to that point. On paper, yes, love the team. I'm a little bit concerned.
Right. And a lot of moving pieces, right? There's 19 other moving pieces all at once. It's not as simple as, even 12, right? Feels a lot more manageable. But we have 8 new teams bringing in players who are mostly unsigned. We have 12 other teams who are existing who are bringing in unsigned players, trading players. There's so much going on here. It's really interesting to me, Yiska, that you have said, like, hey, that DPS duo is kind of underwhelming with Prophet and Birdring, and still put them in top 4. But you kind of justified a little. You kind of justified it a little bit. Like, I would rather see Striker. I think that could be the key piece, the key fit. So that's kind of interesting to me, but I won't make you dive. I won't make you to defend yourself this week. I won't make it happen. Right. I think you've done a well enough job here. Let's talk about, though, New York Excelsior. Who knows? This might be our last one. New York Excelsior crushed the regular season. 34-6 plus 83 map differential. Insane. They don't, though, in the playoffs, right? So they lose to London in the playoffs, right? I believe. No, how did this? So, man, why can't I remember this?
No, they didn't lose to London. They lost to.
So they get the bye and they
Fusion,
lose to the Fusion. Yeah. Sorry, they lose to the Fusion 2-0 in a best of 3.
First game was bad. Second game was a lot better, but still just couldn't close it out.
Just lose 2-0. A team that only only lost 11 that's not the right amount. Team that only lost 9 maps the entire season. No, that's still stage 2. Sorry, that's wrong. Why can't I find my all? Where's my all?
Regardless, they lost
43 maps. 126 wins, 43 map losses. Literally 3-1. 3-1. Sorry again for all that crappy math there for a moment.
Good, dude. No worries.
So, NYXL supposedly not changing too much here. Nene, unofficial. And
I don't
Nanahana.
know why they have him as tank. Am I just Nene? On the Reddit document, they have him listed as tank.
Yeah, because supposedly he's being repurposed to be a...
Really?
Yeah. I think that was an announcement, wasn't it?
Formerly Tracer Widowmaker player for XL2, and before that, Lunatic High. Luxury watch Reddit.
That's interesting.
Supposedly changing
I'm not even
it up.
sure where this came from. Yeah. Can't believe that's actually true, but yeah. I don't know.
That's a big interesting.
That's strange. I liked him. I thought he fit well with an XL2. Bringing him on board, he kind of rivals Sabiolbi in that sense, and I don't think it's much of a rivalry. So if you can repurpose him, if he has some sleeper picks that can be utilized at like flex, I guess it's worth a shot. But that's a whole new player. You might as well change his name because I don't even know how to grade him. Wouldn't even know where to begin. I mean, he has a lot of flexibility in that sense, where if you're going to take a hitscan tracer role and just move him over to flex tank, you can still run some sort of strange triple DPS, which we are seeing in some of the eastern regions every once in a while. Some teams are a little bit more bullish than others, but it's interesting to say the least. I don't know how to feel about it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then Flower. Do you need 4 DPS though?
Like I don't know if that actually is a thing. I can see Flower not being on the main roster.
Yeah, that was my big question. The second they signed him to XL2, it was like, okay, what do they do with him past that point? Do they bring him on? Do they not? I'm still under the kind of the theory that I think they're going to trade Libero somewhere. And they're going to bring him on.
$1 million.
I would never do that. Ooh, I would never take that chance. I'm not even sure if Peak Flower was better than Peak Libero.
I agree with you.
Especially what we saw the second half, for sure.
Yeah.
First half Libero, we could arm wrestle on that. I would arm wrestle you on that. But second half Libero, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
He's such an
best DPS in Overwatch League, the world. I'll say it. I'll say for those 2 stages, there's nobody I think that played better. I would say just best Overwatch League player, best Overwatch player in the world at that time.
I think he's very valuable. He kind of fills that same Fleta role for me, where it's like you can put him on flex tank, does really well. You can put him on any DPS hero in the game, performs at an above average.
What does NYXL look like in a world where Libero breaks a wrist?
I hope you like McCree.
I think they still do well.
Not as good.
But not nearly as well with Pine, on Widow and McCree, and that's kind of it. And you just kind of hoping
random
that...
Genji.
Yeah, but like Sabiolby doing his best. Sweet Sabiolby.
It's sort of unfortunate that the world didn't get to see his Hanzo as well, because like, it's very, very seldom the case that every player I talk to just goes like,
"Yeah, he is the best."
There's nobody that even holds a candle.
Yeah,
I think again that was a whole. As much as everybody jokes, it's as much as everybody jokes about NYXL sandbagging, they were publicly announcing that they were sandbagging. So I don't know how else we can look at that and say, oh no, they weren't sandbagging. No, they were. Their coach publicly said that they were sandbagging. They're hiding strats. If your best player in the world at a specific character that is so prevalent in the meta is not playing on his best hero, I'm sorry, you're hiding strats. You're overconfident in what you can do in that matchup. You're a little bit sandbaggy. You're a little bit like overly aggressive and greedy in that sense. You're not putting him on his best hero, and you're messing up.
I think the thing is, they were playing some Hanzo. They gave in eventually. I think this is
didn't Sabiolby play Hanzo?
Yeah, he did
some,
but like that's also more like the calling structure or whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like the late turn towards Hanzo and Brigitte as well is sort of like, I had a video on this week between the perfect Overwatch versus the pragmatic Overwatch, and I think they tried to play perfect Overwatch too much, because they were playing perfect Overwatch when it was always going well. And it's very easy to then, okay, so let's take the foot off the pedal so we can burst into playoffs, right? And suddenly, like, there's no gas in the tank. Like, the engine power doesn't work anymore. Like, this is not, like, I don't know if the wheels are off the ground or whatever, but they're not accelerating at the same pace anymore, because perfect Overwatch, or the idea of it, just doesn't work as well anymore. So yeah, I think that's what happened. And then as, like, what's the lesson from that as a future outlook? Well, that's hard to say, because one of the supposed maestros of that idea is no longer with the team. So I don't know what that means. I have no idea. Once again, it's so transparent. Is it Pavani who has all these like masterful strategies and he's really crisp, like enforces these crisp executions and whatever, and you know, who is it? And if that can be maintained, well, I'm inclined to say that NYXL was the best team in Overwatch in 2018. I think that's hard to argue. Why not 2019 if nothing were to change? Because like it's very unlikely to be the case, by the way, because it's very unlikely that Wizard Young just gets by on his reputation, right? It does absolutely nothing. Of course, that's not the case. I think they certainly will have to fill that position as well. And I mean, their coaching staff looks very small in comparison to everyone else. Yeah. So I'm hoping they're filling that up.
Let's talk about that. I want to talk about that. Can we cut and talk about that really quick? Because Bare Hands gone, Wizard Young gone. Now Bare Hands was GM. Now with the Florida Mayhem, Wizard Young, formerly, what was his title? Was it analyst?
Who?
Wizard Young?
Wizard Young?
Was it analyst? Was it coach? I think they just had him as coach.
Assistant coach. Yeah. Might have been some form of a coach, but yeah.
I'm gonna find what it says here in their original press release.
I kind of almost want them to go the same route.
Yeah, just coach is what they called him in the initial. So you lose your GM, you lose a coach who's not the head coach at the time, but is a coach. Apparently signed for a lot of money in Washington D.C. You lose a lot there. Is that a big take here? I mean, they lose Janice on the player's side, which honestly, if there was a play, I don't know if there's a player to lose. Yiska. Is Janice the one that you lose if you got to cut one player from that NYXL squad?
Yes,
I think so too. Yeah. That's the player that I probably cut. As much as I love Janice, I think that's just the player that who is the least instrumental to NYXL's success.
Yeah.
But on the coaching staff side, I mean, you're kind of doing a pretty big restructure here. And it's hard to believe that your success in season 1 is based off of, number 1, just Pavane.
Mm-hmm.
Because your only other coach is Zet, who signed at the end of March. Mm-hmm. It's not exactly like he was there the whole time bringing everything. So it's either all on Pavane, or you're doing some pretty big restructuring here going into season 2. Joe, is this a big red flag for you for NYXL? Is this a team, or is this more like London Spitfire, where they can make these changes, they can keep their players mostly intact, and still be a top 4 team?
I do think they'll be successful, but to speak on the coaches specifically, I kind of almost want to restructure them so you can. I want to restructure them the same way that some Korean LCS teams are restructuring on their coaching staff, where they're bringing in actually some just Korean teams and other MOBAs and other games are starting to do, where they're starting to recycle some of the old talent from other games that just have a good mind for the game and the pedigree behind them, that they were a former amazing pro gamer. You have it on Seoul with KDG. He played Brood War professionally, or at least at a high level. I heard today through the grapevine that there's this MOBA being played in Korea that a former StarCraft 2 professional pro player is now coaching for. So that's really cool. The Afrika Freaks head coach in League of Legends is a former Brood War like god. Bringing that level of like having someone on that pedestal that you just kind of have to respect because they've done so much elsewhere, I think would do really well for this team, and then move Pavane to more of an assistant coach so that he can really start to focus more on the in-game aspects rather than trying to manage the players. But yeah, bringing somebody in with like experience in another game to obviously add a little bit more maybe strategic diversity, but also to really not put the players in line, but to instill a very strong sense of a role model in that sense. But yeah, that'd be something fun I'd like to see them do. But I do think they need some help on the coaching front.
So, I mean, is this enough to bounce them out of like a top 4 team for you? These changes?
Here's another factor for you that should make you think.
Mm-hmm.
If you are an NYXL player, you win 2 stages,
sure,
dominate for most of the season, you don't win Overwatch League. That's a motivator.
I'm playing PUBG. No, I'm quitting. I'm playing PUBG in my off time.
These, like, I think what Sebiobi said after the final really left an impression on me. And I think he said something. It's not obviously a quote, but he said something. This loss was the most valuable experience we had this season.
Yep.
That's not only baller, that's scary as hell.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Didn't Pine say something that was like really deep and kind of worrisome?
Like they lost the first stage finals against
London.
Yeah. And they had this feature piece. People can look it up. I'm probably maybe over dramatizing what he said, but he said something along the lines, after losing the first stage finals against London, he said something along the lines of, why even exist? Like, that sort of tells you something. To be fair,
post stage 1 Pine did not trend well until probably stage 4 again, right? Because he like took some time off. He was having some struggling here.
Yeah, he went back to Korea for a while, right?
Yeah. And quite a few Korean players did.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
Like, I do think there are changes.
As deep as that was, like maybe he over dramatized it a little bit for some of the things going on in his own personal
possibly
life as well. I mean, it's tough to go. I think what was it, 9-1 in stage 1? Seems about right. You go 9-1 in stage 1 and then lose to a team that didn't do that in stage 1. Man.
Was it 8-2?
Could have been.
I don't even remember at
Season
this point.
1.
Yeah. In stage 1, I mean, yeah.
Season 1, stage 1, NYXL 9-1, Spitfire 7-3.
Oh, okay, yes.
So, I mean, close enough. Tied with the Outlaws, actually. Finished behind the Outlaws. London Spitfire did. I remember that. We were all I was so excited. I'm so excited for the Outlaws to do it. Then they lose 3-1.
Yeah.
And then Spitfire win an epic 5-game series.
Yeah, they were. The rumor, the narrative was that they went backstage after their kind of quarterfinal and practiced a whole bunch and just kept scrimming.
Oh
and
yeah,
just kind of
that's
burned
right.
themselves out to a point where they just were killing it. So yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, it was a great. I still think stage 1 playoffs might have been one of my highlights of.
Yeah. Definitely.
Season
it was
1.
definitely one of the more interesting stage final.
One of the first series to really matter in Overwatch League, and they took it very seriously. Those stage 2, stage 3 playoffs, teams had already kind of figured out, hey, we can win $100,000 now, win a play, or we can just play the long game here.
Mm-hmm.
And not that you saw teams take it less seriously, but there's just less showmanship there. I also think part of it was on the Overwatch League broadcasting team, where again every single stage playoffs should feel like end of season playoffs, just to the 75th percentile of what that should be, and instead it's just hey, it's just another day, it's just extra. That was before they did stage playoffs on a different day as well.
Yeah,
remember that?
They did that directly after, so they had to play.
They just went boom, 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 boom. That was a long day.
Because that was a good idea.
They changed that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, I don't know how long we've been going here. It's been a while.
Hour 45, I think.
Hour 45. Do we want to just do one more? Finish it up. We've got one more left, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. If we would get one more left, then let's do one more.
Yeah,
and then
finish it up.
Talk about the Fusion a little bit. Fusion are going to be that last team here. Sato, Fraggy, Poco still at tank. Snilla, Carpe, and EQO still at DPS. Boombox and Neptuno still at support. Elk. When exactly did Elk come on?
Not too.
Was it? It wasn't. It was the 25th of September that he came on. So definitely
the last month.
Yeah. So he would be the only signing on the actual, either rumored or otherwise.
He's also, I believe, he's a two-way player.
Yes, he is.
So we probably won't see a ton of him.
Was he the first two-way player?
Might have been.
Yeah, maybe.
At least maybe publicly said so.
Yeah, maybe.
Trying to look here. Organization. Nothing's changed there. I mean, this is a team that really hasn't, Shadowburn, Dayfly, and Joe Meister gone
Gonzo.
Beginning of September. So they've been gone for a little while. Added Elk, end of September. Everything else is stayed the same. Hotba going to Guangzhou.
Yeah, their first signing.
Their first and only signing so far.
Their only signing so far. Hotba.
Hotba. That's the one. So, I mean, hey, this is a team who obviously did pretty well in Overwatch League Season 1, if I must say so. Trying to find my exact... I want to look at those playoffs here. Lose to the Fusion, or lose to the Spitfire, 2-0. Beat NYXL, 2-0. They were kind of deceptive a little bit. 6-4, stage 4. 5-5, stage 3.
Yeah, they're the big sleeper team.
7-3, stage 2.
Could go 2-3 with Shanghai and then end up being second.
Yeah, I mean, it very, very well with those types of records. It's almost identical to Houston Outlaws. Could have been the Houston Outlaws. but it wasn't. Also, Fusion missed preseason. Had some very, very, very interesting kind of issues getting started, getting going. Bring in Sato, who's banned for like the first
30 some odd games.
Yeah, 30 of the 40 games, so the first 30 stages or whatever. Kind of an interesting thing. And then they're going, you know what? We're not going to change a whole lot. At least we're not going to leak a whole lot.
Yeah.
Going into season 2.
I kind of expected this team to get ripped apart. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, I should say they are getting a player for Hotba, right? We just don't know who it is yet.
Maybe, yeah.
I believe that's possible. I believe that was the announcement.
Oh, really? They're going to replace him?
I'm going to see
I
for
also
sure.
Think they should probably sign a couple of players.
The Fusion have so the Fusion said the trade alert. The Fusion have traded Hotba to Guangzhou, the new expansion team for Overwatch League. They specifically use the word
trade,
the term trade. At the same time, how do you trade with the team that doesn't have players?
Signed anybody? Yeah. I'm getting a whiff of either some BS or just not using the right terminology.
Young terminology difference.
I don't know. I do have to say it is weird, but if they are going to be, if they've been purposeful in the past of using specific words, then I guess I have to take them at face value and say, okay, if there's a trade, then I'm assuming you're getting something in return. What that could be, I have no idea, but I don't know. I looked at this team and I'm like, oh man, look at all these awesome players that teams could just, pick apart. And then Philly goes on another crazy scouting spree and pulling people from South America and Japan, and they've got a track record of doing really well with talent scouting. So I kind of expected that of them, where they, built these players up and now they can ship them off to another team. But yeah, I do have to look at that back line. Neptuno played really well, and he's going to be able to flex off onto a lot more heroes other than specifically just Mercy, which I think is a great thing for him. Boombox again. Zen's okay. Zen, is the original Jonak in a sense. The person to really put Zen on the map. But I don't know what else he kind of really stands out on. So I think having someone else that's consistently there and not just Elk probably would do. How
do you feel about Elk overall? I've heard really polarizing opinions about Elk. On the one side, Elk is like the second coming of Christ in Western support Overwatch or whatever. Like, it's just really important to them. They love Elk. On the other side, it's like he's a great mind. He understands the game really well. He has very decent mechanics, but he's more of a coach rather than a player, at least long term. His stock is long term in coaching and leading rather than playing. That's a pretty broad spectrum here. I need a place to sit in reality, Joe. I'm hoping you'll put me there.
I think he is good enough to play.
Like Clockwork, good enough to play, or like
no, like
he's better.
He's a starting member of this team if they wanted him to be. I do find it strange that he isn't, because if I'm remembering correctly, I think he is of age. I just think they've signed him to a 2-way for some reason.
Why not?
Because I think he'd be better just to play, unless they're going to sign somebody else.
I mean, it doesn't matter, right? If you sign him as a 2-way, what's the downside if they play Overwatch League the whole time because they're that good?
Well, then the 2-way
just pay some extra money.
I guess.
Right? Because the 2-way contract is just you have to pay them the minimum salary in both.
Sure.
As far as I remember, again, I don't have it all pulled up in front of me, so please correct me. I could 100% be wrong here. And my understanding is that 2-way contracts are, ultimately, it's not about like switching players all the time. It's more about having the ability to call up
Yeah, but you can only do it twice a stage.
And that leads me to kind of assume that they're probably, if you're going to sign a two-way player...
They do take a roster slot on both teams. Dream says that. That is a very good point. They do take a roster slot.
Mm.
And that is strange.
Not that we see a whole lot of subs in contenders anyway, but...
Yeah. And that's what's strange to me, is like, why would you sign him as a two-way player if he's just going to play anyways? Unless that's some like legal loophole, but I don't know. I mean, it's strange to me.
Is the value of having an extra player who's Overwatch League caliber to play on your academy team worth the, you know, let's assume that the money overall is negligible. It's just like, unless you're going to sign the full amount, it doesn't hurt, right? Unless you're going to sign a full roster, there's not really a downside there except for money and losing a slot.
Yeah. I think this is one of those teams that's probably waiting to announce some changes. I actually don't know anything about them, but I would assume that something's probably got to be coming.
That really speaks for the quality of the organization, by the way. I like how they handle things. There's very few drama stuff coming from them, other than obviously the Seto thing.
From Philadelphia?
Yeah. I don't think like they're very, very quiet. They just do, you know, they're not boasting or whatever. Like they're not showing off anything. They show up, they kick ass, and then they're, you know, in the finals somehow, and that's all fine and dandy. They do it very in an unorthodox way. They take players nobody would have, you know, even tryouts to. I mean, all of this is like hugely promising, and also this is important to say, they've kept that machinery as one, right? All the coaches are still with them and whatever, and if that's your hope, I think. If I'm, for instance, a South American player, or if I am a Australian player, and I get tryouts, and I'm even so good that I can get actually offers for Overwatch League. Well, if one of those is Philadelphia Fusion, I almost don't care who else says anything to me. Yeah. I'm taking the Fusion deal. Because they have a proven track record of taking these talents nobody believes in and making them, both in EQO and Neptuno's case, some of the best players in the league. And I want to be part of that machinery in that situation, right?
Oh, yeah.
The Fusion are really interesting, and they probably have the most support staff out of any other Overwatch League team at this point, right? So you've got Tucker Roberts, who's the president. You've got Thelonious, who's team manager. You have Voyager, assistant team manager. Of course, we've got Chef Heidi, but we'll ignore that for a second. Then you've got Kirby, named Y, Hayes, Beezy. Got all those. All these people doing their supporting the organization in that. You've got 3 streamers, Kabaji, Hunmaro, and I think Emong, right? I think Emong was a pretty recent, not recent, maybe like back in like June. Stuff like they've got a lot of. I like a team that invests as much in infrastructure as they do in players. I do. That's something that I love. I come from small market football. Well, not really small market, but like. You know, just like this very like fundamentals state. Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota Wild, Minnesota Twins. They're all like this very fundamentals types teams. And so maybe I've just had this rammed down my throat. But I look at it and I go, for the long-term success of a team, you need to have as much invested into your support staff as you do into your players. Ultimately, you're going to find you might trend downward or whatever. You might not look great your first season. I think the Philadelphia Fusion got a little, I don't want to say lucky, but I also don't want to say they plan to be in the grand finals of season 1, like with the players that they picked up. Like I think that there was very much a let's do well this season. Let's be on the upper side of the top 12. But let's make sure that these players are set up for success. Let's make sure this organization is set up for success. Let's make sure that we've got an infrastructure to support them. Let's make sure we've got an infrastructure to support our fans. Let's build a brand outside of this. Bring on streamers. I can't tell you how successful they've been with that whole, like, hey, we've got the Philadelphia Fusion streamers. kind of thing. I can't tell you how successful that's been, but I admire.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if there's
it's
a franchise that I admire more in Overwatch League right now than the Philadelphia Fusion.
For a team to start the season as poor as they did, missing preseason.
Hashtag no preseason, yeah.
No preseason, just a giant meme of an announcement video.
Be dominate.
Yeah.
Really awful social media there for a little bit. Sorry, guys, if you're
No,
listening.
no.
But it was
Just-
that whole like rolling into it. I appreciate it, but you shouldn't have rolled into it.
But I do think they ended really, really strong, and it's just a testament to what you're saying, that they are approaching this very intelligently, the same way that a lot of traditional esports teams have done very, very well. Bring on the brands, bring on the relatively popular streamers. I don't know if it's allowed, but I wouldn't hate if they went to Fortnite, grab a streamer there, expand it out.
I wonder if they can't.
Yeah.
I bet you they can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but yeah.
They're making a new franchise. Like, otherwise, why don't we see a LA Gladiators Fortnite squad?
Exactly. I mean, that's a funny point, because I do think that in that same ownership group, I think they actually do have a Fortnite team.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, like Misfits has to have a bunch of stuff too. Like, there's a bunch of these endemic esports organizations that already have existing teams that obviously didn't drop them. Cloud9 obviously is very much still alive.
Yes.
But there's a very difference between being, a Cloud9 BR team and a London Spitfire BR team.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which we talked for like 3 hours one night about just franchising and esports, and we should have recorded that because that was something else.
Mostly the takeaways were just got to be smart about it.
Yeah.
Establish the brand elsewhere. Even if it has loose ties, you still have to, be able to sustain yourself in other titles, because, as much as we like Overwatch League, and perhaps maybe we'll get more news on this in the future, games have a life cycle. And if they don't see some injection, and if they don't see some sort of injection of content or any form of large update, they tend to go by the wayside pretty quickly. So investing upwards of $50 million into a slot, not to mention the overhead cost, that's a very large investment for anything from 3 to 8 years.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more teams spread out and really build a portfolio instead of just banking on the Overwatch League to make a buck. So yeah, there's your business talk for today.
There you go. So let's just to round this all out before we end it here. The Philadelphia Fusion finished 6th overall in the season results. They go into the final season playoffs. Right now, I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to find the season playoffs, and I'm not going to be able to, and that's going to make me really, really angry.
Well, they beat London.
Yeah,
they beat New York, and
they get second, right? They lose to London overall. So they beat Boston Uprising. They beat New York, lose to London Spitfire. There. This is a team that ultimately finished 6th, I believe, in the entire league.
Regular season, yeah.
And then finishes essentially second
the playoffs.
In the playoffs, netting themselves. How much is it? How much do you win for that? $400,000, I believe. Yeah. So you win a good chunk, but this is definitely a team that kind of trended middle of the pack and then just kind of had this end of season burst of something special. Is this a team? Where does this team land for you, Yiska? At the end of season 2, like, is this a team that, with very minimal changes to their infrastructure, like, to me, they read like a team that still finishes 6-4. You can catch them on a good weekend on playoffs. If they're playing well that weekend, they could win a stage playoffs.
Yeah,
but they still won't go 9-1.
Yeah, I think they are one of those teams that, so obviously would very much help for my forecast to know if, for instance, the play-ins had a meta switch. If yes, Fusion has to be considered the team that, under that volatility, gets the best results. They definitely make that play-in, right? So, I think it's quite likely we will see them in playoffs again. I think a lot of those players didn't get worse at all. I think they have a couple of problems that they need to fix in terms of like roster recruitment in order to be this flexible as they also were last season, and then to apply these certain strategies that you need in certain metas. But yeah, I think in general, I mean, I'm counting obviously how many teams I already called playoff teams, but I think they should be one of them.
It's fun. Right now we can go on guts individually. Eventually I'm going to make you, combine them all and give me a list. But for right now, you can say every team's a top 4 team. And then, and then clip that.
That sucks.
Clip that. Say, yeah, it's a top 4 team right there. And then clip the 4 teams that you said that for that actually finished top 4 and be like, I told you so.
Yeah.
Hashtag Overwatch analyst right there. That's how it's done. Yeah, that's going to be a really, really good time, I think. Overall, I think for me, I've kind of already said it. Like, I could see them anywhere from like 7 to 11. 7-11 there, where I don't see them being a top tier team. This is also a team that seems to be the most professional about their leaks. As much as I love leaks, I also love an organization that can control their leaks, because that speaks to me as an organization that is loyal.
Yes.
And that's really important to me. I come from a long experience working for Apple, and then right now with a company that very much values that loyalty, that privacy.
Mm-hmm.
We might see 3 or 4 changes here. We might see some new players coming around the corner.
Possible, yeah.
Who knows? So I don't know. I don't see a bottom half team here. I just, it's a 1 through 10 team. It really could be. Joe, what do you think?
I kind of do have to peg them at least for playoffs for the most part. No one, while there are teams that are being added, I do think, to Yiska's point, when the meta changes, I can count on Philly to at least bring a certain level that other teams maybe aren't going to be able to. They just have a consistency about them that I really enjoy. If you get me another support, I like this team a lot. Not to say that Neptuno or Boombox are poor, but I think that having someone else to fill out that support line, if Elk isn't going to be the person, because if he did, I feel like you probably wouldn't sign him as a 2-way player. I think that's more of a lockdown versus I think you should come to the Overwatch League team, which is strange. I think a lot of people were really interested in Elk. Just from the community sentiment, I think teams would have to look at him regardless. But he has the skills to back it up. So I think he was really, really sought out after. And I think they're bringing him on as a 2-way just to be like, okay, well, what if we did this and you can stay with this team and still do really well? So I think it was more of a long-term move. Maybe if they do like him, they bring him aboard. But as of right now, he's a 2-way player, which kind of means to me that he's not going to be a starting member for this team. So bringing on another support is my linchpin, and I think that they will.
I'm still bullish. I'm still bullish on the 2-way player thing. I don't think that indicates a whole lot, except for the fact that if a player is underperforming,
I'll be happy to.
They've got the ability to, make something happen. I don't think that's, hey, you're not good enough to play here.
And so it's think they only get 2 games before they get essentially signed to the Overwatch League and they can't play in contenders anymore.
I don't care. I don't care if you're overplaying in contenders. Come on up, buddy. Come on.
But why not just sign him to I don't know.
Because I don't know. I need a leader. I need a leader down there in Academy. I need somebody who can do that. I've got Neptuno.
Yeah.
I've got oh my god, why can't I remember the other supports team for the Fusion?
Boombox.
Yeah, well, I've got these people. They're good. I know that they're going to perform okay. They've performed well in the past. But I like you, kid. And I might want you up here in season 2. I might.
I don't know. I feel like if you can't make that decision within like 4 to 5 months, like, I don't know.
No, I mean, so much changes.
I know.
So much changes in Overwatch League.
I get where you're coming from.
I want to hedge my bets. I'm a safe guy. I'm a guy who goes and bets table minimum at blackjack all night long, makes smart plays, plays by the books, notices when that card count is getting high, and I start hitting bay, and then boom, come on over. I'm gonna spend that extra money a little bit, get a two-way player, be like, hey, play down here. Or play up here, whatever. That's not what we want to go back down there. You're playing really well here. Come on up.
And if that's the case, then I still do think you need somebody that you're confident in being a starting 6 member. If you can give me another starting 6 support member, I think they're very clearly a playoffs team. But until then, I think we'll have to see.
I think there's a lot of ambiguity though, in that like the 30 to 70 percentile, where there's a lot of players where it's like, honestly, 2 good series at Overwatch League is the difference between an academy level player and an Overwatch League player, because it is so difficult to measure.
Yeah,
I really do, and I know I'm.
Well,
gonna
then
get,
you can
I'm
just
gonna,
bring Elk up.
I'm gonna get for that. I know I'm gonna get for that, but like, yeah, I just think
sign. If I'm GM for Philly, I sign someone who I'm confident in, and if he doesn't work out, then I bring Elk up. I guess that's it.
I think that's part of it. I think meta changes are another part of it, and I think if Elk overperforms in academy,
then bring him up.
I think that's another part of it.
Sure, yeah. That's just the weird thing for me, is the two-way player thing. If you're going to sign him as a two-way player and you're going to bring him out anyways, why not just sign him? That's just the weird
because ambiguity. You don't know, and you also don't know how your academy team looks, and there is money to be made as an organization in academy.
I agree. It's just strange. So
I agree.
That's just my thing. If I can get another support for this team, and perhaps maybe another strange specialty or a specialist for DPS, I think the team's very, very good.
I just think a player goes, you know what? Hey, coach, I want to play a lot next season. I want to keep improving.
True.
I don't know if I can improve in scrims and practice at the Overwatch League level. I don't know if I could be my best player, but I'm going to give you my best. I'm going to play down in Fusion Academy.
I think that's so super tangent. I think that's really, really intelligent. But do you worry when you hear that as a coach? Like, I don't know, coach, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. Okay, when are you going to be ready?
I don't think you say I'm not ready as much as I think for the way that I play and the way that I best learn, I would rather have more live time than this passive practice scrim time.
I agree. I think that's intelligent.
What I would give for a player to even have the guts to not feed me if I'm being honest, if a player comes up to me and says, you know what, coach, like I really want live time. I want to be the head of a snake, not the tail of a dragon. That's what I want to be. And I can be the head of a snake down in academy. I want to play at Overwatch League level. And if I'm playing that well there, if you guys need help there, I will be there for you. I believe in the Philadelphia Fusion. If I hear that as a coach, like, dude, you're going in my Fave 5.
Really?
You're going in my Fave 5. Back to like 2003. Remember the Fave 5? You got 5 people that you can text or call for free all month long. That player's going into the Fave 5 right there.
What do you think about that, Yiska? I'm not sold.
About what specifically?
Like if a player comes to you on a metaphorical team and they say, you know what, coach, I'd rather you develop a little bit more before I get put on the main roster. Does that worry you at all?
Rephrase.
Okay.
Rephrase. You come up to this player who's done well in contenders. You say, you know what? Hey, son, I want to sign you to an Overwatch League team. I want to talk to you about a contract with the Philadelphia Fusion, 2nd place in Overwatch League. Right? I want to talk to you about this. You are prolifically known as one of the smartest people in contenders. one of the smartest minds, at least as a player, in Contenders. And I lay 3 options in front of you. Continue playing Contenders. Come on to our Philadelphia Fusion team full time for 60, 70K. Close to league minimum. Or, make a little bit less, like 50 to 65K. But come on as a 2-way player. You continue to play well there. You do that.
Yeah.
You come to that player with that mindset. The player goes, you know what? I kind of want to be a 2-way player. I think I would benefit the most from this situation. From playing in Contenders. I would rather play in the heat of the moment than to play these fake games off and hope that I can play beside Neptuno and Boobox and your already existing support lineup.
Yeah, I think there's some value in going for the 2-way contract simply because, I think there are a lot of players signed to Overwatch League teams that never really had then the chance to show themselves ever again. So those people will also be it will be very hard for them to come back onto a team. So yeah, that's I think it might make sense in some French cases, yeah. And I don't think it's such a bad thing for the player to say that, even though it might reveal some, choking issues in the future just because he doesn't have the mindset for it yet. Yeah, that's possible.
And maybe you're. I think just from that conversation, you're definitely selling me more on the 2-way. If a player comes to you and they're not the most confident in the world, I think it is important to kind of inspire them in that sense and say, you know what, if it doesn't work out, you can always go back down. But giving you that opportunity, just to see how they like it, is important. So, yeah. It's I think you sold me a little bit.
Yes, we did it. All right, we got to get out of here though. This has been a long episode. We're coming up on 2 hours and 15 minutes, but we're not going to be doing a show next week. Keep that in mind. You will not have a new episode here. So we just gave you an extra long one this week. Talked about what I think we hope to talk about a little bit more, but we still talked through all the Atlantic Division teams. We're going to start with Pacific Division teams. What is that? The 5th of November. Yeah. That's going to be
shortly after BlizzCon.
Shortly after BlizzCon. Yeah. Joe's going to be there.
I am. I'll have to.
Yiska and I will probably not be. I might be moving out there. So I might just show up.
You should.
Who knows? I've got a press pass waiting for me if I can make it there.
Ooh. Nice.
But I don't know if I can make it there. I've got this little dog to take care of back here. Just chilling.
Little? Is it little?
130 pounds.
Is he little?
Hi, Choach. All right. All right. He's like, what? Do your show.
Want me.
Yeah. Thank you guys for hanging out. We really appreciate it. Hope you guys had a good time. Yiska, you just posted a new video this morning, right?
As did Joe, by the way.
As did Joe.
Check it out.
Go watch Yiska.
So what are the show? What are they about?
San Francisco Shock.
San Francisco Shock for Yiska. Joe, what's it about?
Somebody asked a question about Paris, and I elaborated on my thoughts about Paris. So go French.
You don't have to hurry. Jeez, we got all the time in the world. I mean, I know Yiska's tired.
I heard the music, dude.
I just hear the music, and I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna ramp up. Quick.
Yeah, no, it won't. I can fix this whenever I want. That's the beauty of this thing. Hashtag GoXLR. Yeah, right? Hashtag sponsored, except not paying us a dime.
Except not at all.
Yeah, not at all. But check them out. I believe you can find them on YouTube. Search for Yiska, Volamel. The reason why we I don't want to say I asked them to be on the show, because I feel like it was pretty mutual. We decided we wanted to do a show together. Kind of thing. But the reason why I would have asked them on the show is because they're the 2 best content creators in professional Overwatch.
Don't sell yourself
Overwatch short. Right now. I regurgitate a lot of I really do. And I think I do a good job of it. But these guys are smart, okay? They're so smart. So make sure to subscribe to them on YouTube. catch all that out. Of course, you can find Tactical Crouch. Search for KickedTripod, Overwatch League Daily, Tactical Crouch. You find it all there. You got Yiska here, Volamel here. Smartest people at Overwatch right now. Just the smartest people. Yiska, it's bothering me. What did you do to your forehead? You got like this Band-Aid thing.
I love how we missed the whole episode. Yeah. You just sat on there and I can't
concentrate anymore. Is it shaving up there? You have like a widow's peak and you shaved it off and like.
No, that's me, dog. I got the widow's peak. Look at that. Ugh.
I don't. Horrendous. Right? Like, look at this. It's straight,
dude. You got a full head of hair, dude.
I do. It's a little bit thinner than I like.
Silver fox in 20 years.
It's gonna be. It's a little thinner than I like. Like in the right light, you can just like shine through. It's like a forest.
Oh, big same. I know exactly how that feels. So.
I need to know what it is.
I don't know. A pimple, dude.
Oh, really? Just like you just popped it and just
yeah.
Called it.
Didn't want to bleed on camera, so he patched himself up.
Just leave. That's respectable.
Yeah.
Because I just like either don't pop it at all, just let it all be there.
It feels weird. Just a mountain on your face.
I have been very fortunate, and like this is like the most pimply I've gotten since I was like 15. Is this good end of show content? All right, guys, we'll see you for Tactical Crouch episode 6 next time. Thanks again. Bye.